Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by 4-Wheel Parts. Today's show is about battling burnout. And I don't mean the cool, fun burnouts that you do in your vehicle. I'm talking about when you're getting a little overwhelmed, getting a little stressed, you get burned out. So that's what we're talking about today. Before I get into the show, though, there's a few things I want to cover. First is 4-Wheel Parts. I just found out something that is pretty awesome. You can buy, lifted, fully built vehicles from 4-Wheel Parts. I literally had no idea that this existed. So if you go to their website, they have a thing called 4-Wheel Part Customs, and you can look up, if you want a Ford truck that's already lifted and built, here's one. It's a 2018 F-150 that looks like it's got a custom paint job on it, a lift, wheels, tires, 36,000 miles. It's $36,000. It's so cool. I had no idea this existed. So if you're looking for a lifted Jeep or a truck or something, and you don't really want to do the build, but you want something that is already set up nicely, this might be a good option for you. So 4-Wheel Parts Customs, you can check that out. Let me know your thoughts. I would be very curious if anybody else knew about this, because I did not, and I pay a lot of attention to 4-Wheel Parts, so really awesome stuff. Excited to see something like that. And outside of that, we have a number of awesome partners that make this show possible, and they have for a long time now. AMSOIL, they provide amazing lubrication products, and they are a company that runs on freedom. You can find out more at amsoil.com/rider. SolderWeld, they produce game-changing metal ponding technology, and they're ready to rescue your race. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsport sponsorship and website creation. They also do resumes, and that is one thing that Jeff over there is talking about. He's like, yeah, I can do more resumes. So if you're looking for a resume, check him out. Bold Racing, their family desert UTV race team and longtime supporters of the show. Crash Act Industries, they provide human protection extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, MBRP, HMK USA, Stud Boy Traction, and High Octane Coffee. And then, if you're a fan of the show or not a fan of the show, head over to iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, and leave a rating and review. I keep begging people on the show to do this. I'm not going to tell you what rating to give, but trust me, I love the 5 stars. We've got, almost 100 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts, and, that's phenomenal. But we need more. Honestly, we need your feedback. That's one of the ways that the show gets additional visibility. So that's a big deal for me, so that's why I always talk about it. And whatever podcast player you use, whether it's Google Play or Podbean or if it's Apple Podcasts, subscribe that we don't miss upcoming shows. Speaking of upcoming shows, let's get into it. Right before I get into the show, though, I do have a segment called the High Octane Coffee Marketing Tune-Up featuring Joe Sylvester, and he gives a little tidbit of sponsorship advice. I feature this at the beginning of every show. He can be reached at Joe Sylvester 8 or at High Octane Coffee, and here it is.
What's up, guys? Joe Sylvester here with your High Octane Coffee Marketing Tune-Up of the Day. Today I want to talk about sponsor attraction. Sponsor attraction, to me, is a much better tactic than quote-unquote sponsor hunting. You want to build your brand. You want to establish yourself in the racing community and in the marketing realm of things. As a respected individual, as a professional, you don't want to just keep knocking on doors and hoping somebody answers. You want the sponsors to come to you. That is the most ideal situation for you to be in, and it's the most ideal situation for them. Believe it or not, companies do have, people that work for them or even owners of companies. They take notice on social media. They see what's going on, and they see the brands. They see the people that stand out. Make yourself stand out from the rest. Be very active on social media. Be very active with your press releases. Try to grow your email database. And like I said, build your brand. Make your brand something that a company would be proud to be associated with. And like I said, when they come to you, it's a much better feeling than sitting there all night long sending out 100 emails. I know this from experience, trust me.
All right, I am going to get into this show now, and I guess I'm excited, but I'm a little stressed to talk about this topic, which is based on stress. Honestly, the topic seems perfect for me this week because, one, I kind of feel it right now. Like, let's just be honest. I'm battling burnout myself right now. And two, I've seen it in a few others recently. I don't really expect that this show is going to offer a ton of solutions, although I do have a few things that I kind of break down, right? I'm going to give you some suggestions for different ways of looking at, your current situation and what you might be able to do about it. So I just don't know if it's going to solve everything, but I hope it at least offers you some validation of what you might be feeling right now. Now, let's be honest, most people that listen to this show have a pretty high likelihood of battling the burnout. A lot of people who listen do have a full-time job and they're racing, whether it's on nights, weekends, taking days off to race, or they're supporting their kids racing. It ends up being a pretty hectic schedule. If not, if you are a pro, you're probably on a pretty strenuous travel, training, or appearance schedule, regardless of what it is. I know that if you're listening to the show, you're likely pushing yourself to be better, and consequently, you probably push yourself like that all the time. So what I'm basically saying is the people who listen to this show, they're seeking personal development, they're seeking to be better. You're more likely to be the type of person also that gets burned out and just overworked, overstressed, out of time. So hopefully my message here is going to resonate with you for that reason. Hopefully my assumptions about the audience are true. And honestly, for a large part of the population, especially in the United States, it's pretty true too. So I don't think I'm going too far out on a limb here by picking this topic, but I do know that this group here, they tend to live multiple lives, whether it's the day job or the pro schedule. They're always doing something, and they're having to cater their message to different audiences, even if it's just looking at different sponsors. You might have a different message to different sponsors, but it's a lot. So basically, I'm here to tell you, I get it. I don't know your story, but I think I know how you feel. And my chronic eye twitch that I have is probably proof that I understand how you feel. So a lot of stress is based on expectations from others and yourself. So you've got expectations from, your employers, sponsors, family, friends, and again, probably worse yet, yourself. So I'm here to tell you that everything will be okay. If you have to take a break or scale back or recharge, do it. Everyone is going to understand, or if they don't understand, then you don't probably want them in your life anyways. So sometimes there's a few expectations that just fall off, and that's just part of life. I feel like I'm just saying this to myself and not to you, but no, I honestly struggle with these things, and I'm assuming you listening, you're going to struggle with these things too, because you might not want to let anything go or make any tweaks that could put your brand at risk of not looking quite as put together as it normally has. But like I'm saying, in the end, it will be okay. If a few things slip here and there, it's okay. Or if you need to take a break or recharge, people will understand that. There's something that I listened to recently that kind of sparked this, and I didn't even listen to the whole episode. But Jake Coleman from the Dirty Dooner Show, he took a break for a little bit from the Dirty Dooner podcast, and he put out an episode talking about it with his wife. And, he's got a pretty busy schedule. He took on a new job. He had another kid. I think he's got 4 kids. And yeah, he's like, look, I had to back off the show for a little bit, and it wasn't necessarily part of the plan, but that's what happened. And guess what? A lot of people get it. When I listened to that show, I was like, that's really good. It's a really good point. And I look at recently for me, I've been doing some traveling, and my day job has had some additional amount of work required to kind of get things done. And around the house, my oldest son has taken on some additional stuff, and I'm like, holy cow. I mean, I barely sleep as is. So it's been challenging kind of keeping up. So I feel it too. But I know that you all are in a very similar situation, just with different elements of your story. So that's why I want to talk about this, a few things that you might be able to do to make things a little bit better. So that's what we're going to talk about next here. I'm going to take a minute to thank the sponsors for this podcast, and then we'll come back and basically talk about, 5 different ways you can, battle burnout yourself. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back. Let's talk about your truck for a minute. You can count on it to haul your vehicle and your gear to the track or to the trailhead, but I bet you never think about the motor oil. Here's why you should. Your oil is the only thing preventing your engine from wearing out and breaking down. To keep your truck running strong, look for an oil with added wear protection. Like, for example, AMSOIL Signature Series Synthetic Motor Oil. It delivers 75% more engine protection against horsepower loss and wear than is required by the leading industry standard. It provides the next level protection today's demanding engines need to keep running for years and to keep effortlessly towing your ride to the track. Go to AMSOIL.com/rider to find out more. Make the switch to AMSOIL Synthetic Motor Oil today to keep your vehicle running great.
Hey guys, George Hamill here to talk about SolderWeld's new off-road repair kit. If you're a racer of any type or an off-road enthusiast like myself, you're going to want to take a close look at this product that bonds metal on the spot. SolderWeld has combined some of their most elite products into one small kit that fits perfectly under your seat or strapped to a roll cage and allows you to make some insane fixes anywhere you go. How many of us have been in a race or out on the trail and got a rock chip in a radiator or brake line? We have seen a top-tier desert race team at the 2019 Min 400 taken out by a simple rock to the radiator. If they had an off-road repair kit on board, they could have been back up and running in just minutes. The kit includes everything you need to work on dirty aluminum, stainless steel, copper, and many other metals. SolderWeld's cutting-edge technology allows you to make these fixes with extremely low heat and incredibly high tensile strength, leaving you a lasting fix every time. Don't be that guy broke down on the side of the trail. Get your off-road repair kit today, and your friends will thank you.
When I stop to think about all the things that make motorsports awesome, I think of camaraderie, I think of speed, I think of friendship, and I also think of family. And it's hard to go through all of those elements without thinking of Bold Racing. Now, Bold Racing and Jimmy Moore, the owner, has been a long-time supporter of this show and Impact Fuel overall. Jimmy Moore is a desert racer that also has a ton of experience with suspension, UTV axles, and general go-fastness. I would love for you to head over to their Facebook page, Bold Racing, or their Instagram page, bold.racing, and just show them some love. Let them know that you support their race program and you want to see them continue to promote the amazing elements of motorsports. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out crashaddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. 2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with topthepodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you gotta check out topthepodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistall of topthepodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to topthepodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible. Okay, so the first part of this show was really about setting the stage. You know, why might you feel this way? Why might I feel this way? And really validating it, that it's okay, it happens, it's part of life. But this part, the second part here, is really about what you might be able to do about it. You know, there's some actions you can take to kind of get out of the burnout phase. You got to recover, you got to move on at some point. And usually that means not just like continuously killing yourself for a long time. It means changing something in your life to kind of prevent that feeling from happening, because it's not sustainable and it can lead to long-term health issues. Again, I feel like I'm talking to myself here, but I think it's still pretty valid for people listening, probably everybody listening. So I kind of got like 5 different sections here I want to break down, because that's what I do. For some reason, it always turns out with it's the number 5. I don't know why, but it's not on purpose. It just happens that way, folks. So the first one here, though, is what can you stop doing? You know, you got to look at all of the things on your plate, all your expectations. What is it that you can stop doing? So, you know, go back to this idea of a person who has a day job and they're racing, and maybe they're doing some sort of volunteer activity. You know, they need to look at that mix and say, is there anything in here I can stop doing? You know, let's say a day job, right? I mean, I'm not going to encourage anybody to quit their day job, but it might be an option for you. You know, maybe if you look at your career in racing, you're like, wow, if I had another 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week to devote to this, I could go pro and I could then replace my income that I'm making on my day job. That might be an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm done with the day job. I'm going to now focus solely on racing. That's a way of doing it. Yeah, you had some more stress and some uncertainty there, but you're pulling something out of your life. There also might be some sillier things, some smaller things that you can stop doing that you're doing right now. You know, is it super important for your grass to be cut every week? Maybe there's an opportunity to let that slip to every other week. For people out west right now, they're probably like, grass? Like what? Who does that? Us Michiganders worry about our doggone grass. But the point is, if you look at everything you're doing in your life, even if it's like 5-minute increments of stuff that you do on a daily basis or weekly basis, you might be able to pull that out. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in point 4. So I'm just going to leave this part at that. What can you stop doing? I want you to ask that question to yourself. And we will, again, come back to that a little bit in point 4. Next one here, number 2. What can you delegate? And what I mean by that is there something you're doing that doesn't require your specific skill set? Is there another person who is capable and willing to take on whatever that task is? So this is going to be the silliest example probably, but one of the things that I was struggling with for a little while is, my kids, they're 4 and 6 now. But they're still pretty little kids, and, they would leave messes every now and then, and they're really bad with like wrappers, like granola bar wrappers or whatever it might be, just dropping them wherever they are or jamming them underneath the bed or the couch or something. And, I was going through and picking them up for a little while, but then they started getting bigger and like, okay, what can I delegate here? Like, all right, dad's not picking up wrappers anymore. Mom's not picking up wrappers anymore. Like, you kids, this is your responsibility. Like, you throw it away right away, or you pick it up if it's on the ground and you throw it away. And it's silly, but like that saved me like 5 minutes a day, and I needed that 5 minutes back. Another one is social media, for example. If you're managing your own social media right now, a lot of people do that, including myself. You might be getting burned out on that. It's funny I picked social media as an example because that is one of the things that I've been like almost completely burned out on lately. Like every time I put a tag on there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to put this tag for somebody. It's not that hard. It doesn't take that long, but for whatever reason, it's just, I'm burned out on it. So, but there are people that you can pay to do your social media for you. Or maybe you've got a really good friend or a family member that is willing to step into that role and do that for you. That can be huge. That can save you a lot of time. Yeah, it might cost money, but then you have to kind of weigh this out against everything else going on. So is that something? Is social media something that you would be able to outsource and get a little bit more time? Maybe with that time you take a few extra pictures, or maybe with that time you do another appearance for a sponsor, or maybe use that time to do a couple extra workout routines. Whatever it may be, you have to make the decision of what is it that I am doing now that someone else could potentially do, either the same or better. But honestly, I say that the same or better, but maybe you don't need it to be as good as it is now. Now, for social media, that's such a big deal with sponsors. I don't know if that would be something you want to step back on quality-wise, but maybe there's something else that you can step back on quality-wise. I made a joke earlier about cutting grass and how in Michigan that's a big deal. Well, in my yard, it's not like massive, but it used to take me about 3 hours to cut my yard. And, I got a new day job, and it required me traveling longer distances back and forth to work. And I lost some time in a week, and I had to look at the lawn care thing. And I did lawn care for 12 years professionally. My dad owns a lawn care company. So that was kind of a hard thing for me to give up. I'm a perfectionist for sure when it comes to lawn care, and my yard was always just like top notch. And I ended up deciding to hire somebody. I got 3 hours of my life back on the weekends, and it's been very helpful for me time wise. Now, I had a hard time though, because let's just be honest, I've said let's be honest like 4 times in this show already. I almost don't even like it when people say that, because like, all right, what, are you not honest with me normally? But either way, my lawn care company doesn't do as good of a job as I used to. So every time I see it, I'm like, oh, come on, guys. But honestly, I just don't have the time to do it myself, and probably nobody else cares. I know my wife doesn't, right? And she's the only other person that would probably care about the way my lawn looks. I know my kids could care less, but it legitimately bothered me for a while. But I had to look at it like I was able to outsource that. I was able to delegate that to this other company, and it really has helped me out. Net benefit has been massive. Even with the additional financial burden that it brought on, like net benefit, it's been great where I get home, I'm working on a show or whatever it is, and I don't have to worry about cutting the grass. So, or I guess I could have moved out to Vegas or something where there's no grass, but I didn't do that. I did not choose to do that. But yeah, those are just some things to think about if you're trying to delegate some of the things you're doing right now. And honestly, too, there is just so many services out there too that you can delegate. There's Fiverr that you can find people to do the craziest things if you need some help with something silly. So if you're looking at a challenging task that is really driving you nuts, or even a small task that doesn't seem to add a lot of value, there might be someone out there on Fiverr that will just do it, and you can pay them to do it, and that's okay. And additionally, I've talked about this in the show before, but there's something called a virtual assistant. I've toyed with the idea of hiring a virtual assistant myself, but you can get virtual assistants to, open your email and screen your email for you so you don't have to go through all the messages. They can do the same for social media. They can, if you're needing someone to help schedule events or whatnot, you can do that. There are people literally that you can pay an hourly rate to help you, even if it's just 2 hours a week, to get through some administrative type tasks. So it's a good option. It's a good option. Next one here. This is my third point, and it's a question that you have to ask yourself. What is one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? That sounds scripted because it is. There's a book that I'm literally pulling it out. You can probably hear the pages as I'm aggressively flipping through. I keep this next to my desk as a reminder. It's called The One Thing. It was written by Gary Keller with Jay Papasan. And essentially it talks about focus and identifying your main area that you want to spend your energy on. But it asks that question. It basically gives you that as a prompt that you should incorporate into like a daily journaling technique or something like that, where you ask yourself this, what's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary. So I did not at all expect that the show would talk about grass as much as it has. But if I go back to my example of cutting grass, if I moved my location and grass was my biggest concern, if I moved to somewhere where grass does not grow, that no longer is necessary. Like, it's not even a factor to consider. Same with, I live in Michigan and we just started getting some snow right now. If I don't want to plow snow or, put down salt or whatever it is, if I move to a climate that was warmer, that's no longer a thing that I worry about. There could be, this honestly, if you ask yourself this question, there could be a million variables, a million options that come to mind. But my point in this message is for you to ask yourself this question. What would make, if I did this one thing, what could it do for my life? And sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, but usually it's hard to find. But also usually profound when you do find it. So ask yourself that question, think about it, and make a change. Okay, I promised I would get back into a few things that I covered in point 1, what can you stop doing? In point 4 here, which is what can you streamline? Can you simplify a process that you're doing? Can you remove waste? Sometimes that means stopping doing certain things. Now, to understand my background here, this topic I get pretty passionate about, streamlining things. That's what I've done in my career for quite some time now. At a period of time, I was a manufacturing engineer too. And if you don't know what a manufacturing engineer does, there's a number of things, but one of them is pulling waste out of a manufacturing process. So let's say you're assembling a pen, a pen assembly line, and you have 16 steps to assemble this pen. What a manufacturing engineer might do is look at how long it takes for each step and look, is there a way to combine one? So let's say usually a lot of pens have like a little spring in them, and then you thread on a little cap. Well, can you push the spring on while threading on the cap at the same time versus having that be two separate steps? Or, can someone else put the spring on earlier in the process and later on you finish it, and overall it makes it faster. So there's, this can become an obsession. You can probably get burned out on streamlining things, but which is, I laugh because I feel like I might do that now, reflecting on who I am as a person. But either way, this is a way to look at how you do things and what you might be able to do faster. So I'm going to go back to social media for a minute because I referenced that earlier, and most people are pretty active on social media if you're listening to the show, and if not, you should be, or figuring out a way to either hire somebody to do it or some method of getting your message out there. There are tools out there that can help you automate, which is another method to streamlining. It can automate some of the social media aspects. Now, I don't use these tools just because I'm a slacker and I haven't figured it out. No, I haven't really used these tools yet, but there are other people on this show that have given examples. We just did a show with Overland Site, and Ferenc on there gave us an example of a tool that you can use in social media to help you with your publishing. So there's tools where you can, pre-populate your upcoming post. So where you can schedule it all. So let's say if you have some free time every Sunday night from 7 to 8 p.m., you can plan all of your posts out for the week, and then it will publish them. So that's a way of streamlining. For me, one of my biggest challenges early on with creating the show was scheduling somebody. It's still a big challenge, but I was able to streamline a few things. And one of them was how I get guests to pick a time slot. So previously I would go back and forth, like, hey, what about this day at this time? What about this day at this time? What about this day at this time? And we'd go back and forth so much, I spent more time going back and forth than trying to solicit new guests to come on the show. And I found this tool called Acuity Scheduling, and it was a free scheduling tool. I still use it today, where I can pre-populate a schedule or calendar for approved time slots to do recordings. And I give people this link. I tell them, hey, just click the link and you follow the prompts. So it will walk you through, select the time zone. So they select their time zone. That was another thing that was really challenging early on, is figuring out the different time zones. So this tool does it for me. And they click the time zone, and they can go through, and whatever day they want, they can see what time slots are available, click it, hit sign up. And I've got notes in there along the way that says, hey, Josh will prepare an outline for you. He asked for you to provide a couple of pictures to help promote the show, things like that. But I automated that, and it shaved, I don't know how much time. That might have been, 1 to 2 hours a week, maybe. I don't know. It shaved some time out of my process, and that was very helpful. You might even be able to use that same tool in your own life if you're doing sponsor meetings and you can't really decide on time. You might be able to give them a list of pre-approved time slots that they can sign up for. Also, it creates a little meeting request that you can put in your Google Calendar or your Outlook or whatever. If you use an email style platform to manage all your scheduling stuff, you can do that. So that's just another option. One helpful method for figuring out what you might be able to streamline in a process is writing the process down. So another thing that I did early on with this show was, after I did a number of shows, put them all together, I wrote down every single step with a checklist, and I forced myself to check off as I was doing it, the order in which I was doing it. I'd follow the same one and make tweaks accordingly. And then redocument that. So essentially I mapped out every single step. I would check it when I did it, and I would realize what things were out of order and what things maybe were unnecessary. So for example, with my shows, I noticed in looking at some of my analytics that people don't always listen to the very end portion. It's a smaller percentage of people that will listen to, say, I call it the outro. So it's probably the least important segment of my show that people are going to hear. So my effort should correspond to that. So I don't put as much effort into my outro as I do to my intro. So I do a custom intro every single time. I used to do a custom outro every single time. And now I have, a set of like, pre-recorded outros that I can use, and I'll change them up and things like that periodically. But I have this predefined set. If you listen to the show long enough and you listen to the end, you'll notice it's, a lot of times it's the same exact audio. But that's because most people, when they get to the end, they're switching it off anyways, or they're going to somewhere else anyway. So that was a way I could streamline, and I caught that by when I was going through my checklist. I was like, every single time I'm recording this outro, and it adds, I don't know, maybe another 5 minutes of time. Maybe it's 6 minutes of time a week. But when I'm already overbooked, any minute saved is very helpful. Maybe it did lower the quality of my show overall, but the percentage of people who were actually paying attention to that were pretty low too, and they're more concerned at that point about getting to the next episode. So I put a little bit lower emphasis there, although it's still important, and I still have at least in my perception, you all might not agree, a high quality outro. It's just not custom made every time. Another thing I did with my shows is I created a template, because I use background music, I use commercials, and all this stuff is built into a template. I was at first, building out a whole new, starting from scratch every time. And I realized, oh my goodness, there's a couple things that I'm just redoing every time, and it doesn't make any difference, to anybody other than me as the editor. So these are just a couple of examples of how you can streamline a process. I'm using, my podcast as a way of looking at it. But if you look at, let's say, a morning routine, everybody listening, this I can guarantee, everybody listening wakes up and does something to get ready for whatever they're doing. I mapped out my morning routines, and I assigned time limits to things that I do. And, I basically broke it down where I said, if I am not, exiting the house at X time, I'm going to be late for whatever engagement I'm trying to get to at work. So I backed into everything from there, and I said, here's all the things that I want to do in a morning, and here's how much time I have to do them. And there were some things I cut out, some things I added, and we'll talk about the adding things in step 5 here. But essentially what I did was I kind of set some expectations for, how my routine should look, and then I tried to streamline it from there. So this is going to sound silly, but it comes down to even when I shower, right? Like the sequence that I use for, like washing my hair and applying soap, like I mapped that out. I know you guys are probably all thinking I'm super crazy right now, but I shaved off like 1 to 2 minutes, in my shower time, just based off of the sequence that I was using for those things. So it's so weird, but that's the case. There's one person who's super crazy at this. I read a book about it. I don't even remember who it is now, but the concept stuck with me, where he looked at how much energy he was putting into every decision he made throughout his day, and he decided he's going to go with the uniform approach. So he bought 5 pairs of the same type of pant, 5 pairs of the same type of shirt, and he no longer makes decisions about what he's going to wear. He knows exactly what he's going to wear every day because it's the same thing, and he just washes it and then puts it on. So he knows exactly what he's going to wear. He's like, yeah, it saves me 1 to 2 minutes a day, plus some, mental energy processing power. And then, he says, I know how much time it takes me to cook eggs. So he said he also knows how much time it needs to take to do the critical elements of taking a shower. So he puts his eggs on, goes and takes his shower, and then comes back and his eggs are done. He's like, yeah, it's probably not the safest thing, but I'm always worried while I'm in the shower about my house burning down. So I run back and get the eggs, really quickly. And he's like, yeah, that's, I used to do those things, in series, meaning one after another. Now I do them in parallel, and I've shaved another 3 minutes or whatever it was off of my day. So I'm not telling you to be that crazy. I'm just giving you some examples of how you might be able to streamline things that you're doing. Maybe it's race prep. Maybe there's some things that you're doing that can be automated or maybe outsourced again, or that don't need to be done. Maybe if you map the process out, you might be able to find some of those things. So really, I guess what this comes down to is I'm recommending that you map out And when I say map out, you could take some crayons and, a napkin, and write down a couple of steps of things that you're doing and make some tweaks from there. The point is removing waste, unnecessary things from what you're doing. All right. So the last real point I wanted to cover here is ways that you might be able to reduce the amount of stress that you're feeling, essentially reduce the impact that the stress might have on you. And what I'm going to talk about here, it's 5 more things. How do I do this? I swear I'm not purposely picking 5 things. It's not like the rule of 5 that Josh follows. This just happens to be 5 things. So I'm going to kind of break these 5 things down here that likely would help you reduce stress. The first is exercise. Now, I'm saying this at the exact moment where my exercise schedule has kind of fallen off. I had a really good program for years that I was following, and just recently some of these things started falling off. But I noticed that my stress levels have increased, since falling off of some of these things, specifically exercise. Exercise does give you some energy. It does release some endorphins. There's some physical benefits that happen that translate into mental benefits. And I don't need to tell you this. No one needs to tell you this. You know it, but it's so hard to make it work because going back to the process thing and all the things going on in your life, that's something that you might pull out to get something else done. That's definitely what I've done. I've pulled out exercise at times, like right now in my life, to get other things done, but there's repercussions to that. So that's a trade-off, and that's a decision I have to make. Do I want to exercise, which is going to give me more energy, and more mental clarity, or do I do whatever this other thing is? So doing the other thing or the latter is probably a short-term benefit for me. Exercise is a longer-term benefit. But that's one of those things that can help reduce kind of the burnout feeling. The next one is meditation. Now, I have tried meditation before, and I'm not good at it. But everybody that I have followed or studied or learned about from a success standpoint believes very strongly in meditation. When I have done it, I have enjoyed it, but I do it in 3-minute cycles a day. So that's not very much, but it's a good 3 minutes to just sit and clear your mind. And for me, that's probably what I need to do more. But when I'm following my true routine, meditation is part of that for a 3-minute segment. Some people do it 30 minutes, 45. I don't know. Some people can do it for all day, I think, if it's in a very extreme state. But it is a way to gain mental clarity, clear your head, and it helps you, I think, regain focus on what's most important. So that's an option. Journaling, this is one that I have done pretty consistently for several years now, and it has been massive. I follow a structure for it. It takes me about 10 minutes a morning to journal. And but come to think of it, I didn't do it this morning. So yeah, it does fall off from time to time. But I know when I'm doing it, I'm reducing my stress because I'm writing down things that I'm grateful for, things I want to accomplish in a day. It helps me focus, helps me remember that there's a lot of good things in life too, outside of the stressful things. The next one is the hardest thing for me, but also probably the most impactful, is eating healthy. Everybody knows that eating healthy is good for you, right? That's the terms are synonymous. But when you're eating healthier, you tend to have more energy, and you tend to have more mental clarity, very similar to exercise. And that helps reduce stress. It helps you make decisions faster and feel better about yourself, build some confidence potentially. Does usually take some additional effort to plan those things out. And, it takes some additional willpower, which might in the short term be a lot more energy. But when you're in that mode, I guarantee that it will help reduce the symptoms of burnout. So it's a hard one. It's funny. I'm reading all these right now. Like I know that they're the right things to do, but I also know that I sacrifice all of these sometimes, especially right now, to get things done or more things done. So, maybe this is just a wake-up call for me doing this episode that I need to rethink my own actions. And I'm hoping that if you're struggling with a similar thing, you can rethink your actions too. The last one, which I have never, ever, ever done right, is sleeping more. So I feel like I've gone through cycles in my life where I've had a great exercise routine. I've been able to meditate. I've been able to journal. I've been able to eat healthy. I have never figured out a solution to sleeping more. I think that my body is wired where I don't need to sleep that much. But as I age, it's getting harder and harder to not sleep. And everybody out there in the world, all the experts, quote unquote, they tell you to sleep more and you'll get more clarity. For me, I get most of my stuff done before other people are awake, whether it's kids, family, coworkers, friends. That's just where I tend to thrive. So I do a lot of like if I'm recording myself, I do them a lot of time in the mornings, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Or if I'm doing editing, I do almost all my editing in the middle of the night because it's something I need to sit down and really focus on and really think about without any distractions. So that's usually goes against the sleeping more. I know there's a lot of people out there that, they're up really late working on their snowmobile or their UTV or their truck, and they have to get up early in the morning, go to their day job, and then they have to be in an event later that night, and they cut out sleep, and they're exhausted, and they supplement with caffeine or whatever. Just like me, I've got, a pot of coffee upstairs that I drank one at 3, and I'm going to have another one at 5, and, I might have another one at 9, and that's the bad decisions that I'm making currently in my life. But, you don't have to make those same decisions. You can make some tweaks there, and I think it will help reduce burnout overall. All right, that is it. That is what I wanted to cover today. Battling burnout was the name of the show, and hopefully I gave you some validation that, it's okay to feel this way. A lot of people do. And hopefully some of these tips you can at least think on. I don't want you to even get overwhelmed with how much effort it might take to get this stuff figured out. But even if you make one little tweak in your life right now to reduce burnout a little bit, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. All right, well, at this point, I'm going to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by 4Wheel Parts. I want you to make sure that you are subscribed to this show, whether it's on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss upcoming guests and upcoming episodes. And then follow us on social media. We're on all of the platforms. You can find out the most content, though, on our Facebook page. That's where we do our live videos. To get some insider access to upcoming guests, you can also check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. It is a support network where you can ask questions about best practices and get feedback from our audience. A special thanks goes out to our sponsors, 4Wheel Parts, AMSOIL, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. And I also want to shout out some of our other partners, MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and High Octane Coffee. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.